I really loved the original fabric color on this mid-century teak chair, but unfortunately it was stored in a damp basement and the underside of the fabric developed some mold. While washing it helped a little, it didn't fully eliminate the discoloration. Plus, the cushions seemed a bit too small for the chair, so it looks like it's time to brush up on my reupholstering skills. Along with the chair, I also picked up a teak footstool, which originally had upholstery that matched another chair I bought around the same time. However, I'd like it to complement the chair I'm reupholstering now, so I'm including it in this video. Join me as I dive into this reupholstering project. Along the way, I'll share some helpful tips and tricks that might come in handy if you decide to take on a similar project, and I'll also share what I've learned and what I do differently the next time. I'm hoping this video inspires some of you that have some sewing knowledge to attempt a beginner-friendly reupholstering project. I'm no sewing whiz and have minimal reupholstery skills, but I can follow directions. So I googled mid-century chair reupholstery and I found this channel. It was exactly what I needed, simple, straightforward, and not too long. I would encourage you to watch it if you do attempt something like this for the first time. The orange cushions that came with the chair were slightly too small. I wanted the cushions to touch the sides of the chair, so I measured the chair for the dimensions of the foam I needed cut and transferred that information onto the foam. The cut size was 23 inches wide by 22 inches deep, and the foam was 4 inches thick. I had a choice of soft foam or hard foam. I chose the hard. More on that later. Now for the cut list of the fabric, I've added 1 inch all around for the seam allowance, 24 now instead of 23 across and 23 deep instead of 22. I've measured out a straight edge on my fabric, so I've got a good 90-degree angle to start from. It would be nice to have big upholstery scissors, but I just don't do enough upholstery to warrant buying one, so I make do with just my regular sewing scissors. One thing you have to check for when you're buying fabric for cushions that you're going to sit on is that they're going to last. This upholstery fabric is nice and thick, so it should be quite durable. Okay, the next thing that you have to check is the nap of your fabric. I think of the nap of a fabric as comparable to grain. If this were a piece of wood, I could tell the grain would be running this way because that's kind of where how the lines are. Now the nap of the fabric, when you go this way, it's soft. When you go this way, it's rougher. So what you want, if the nap is going down the piece of fabric like this, you want the front of the chair down there, the back of the chair here. So I've got to cut all the fabric in the same way with the nap moving down like this. So if this were the top cushion, this would be the top of the cushion, and you go with the nap, and the bottom of the cushion would be there. If this was the bottom cushion on the chair, the front of the cushion would be that way, and the back of the cushion would be here, because the nap's going this way. So you always follow the nap. If you enjoy watching my furniture transformations, please consider subscribing to my channel. It's a great way at no cost to support what I do, and I truly appreciate it. Thanks. Okay, the zipper is going to fit in between these two pieces, and this is going to be around the back. But I've got these pieces too long. So this shows you how the back of the fabric is going to fit around. This is where the zipper is going to go at the back here. I need the zipper to go all along here and wrap around. because if it doesn't wrap around, if it ends right here, the zipper, it'll be too hard to fit the cushion in. So the zipper actually has to wrap around so it opens up and gives it a nice wide area to push the 4-inch foam in. But this is a little bit too long. I don't want it to go all the way down the sides like this. So I'm going to cut a couple inches off the end here and the end here. I've added a little piece of fabric to the end here. It acts as a zipper stop. I've also sewn the remaining 4.5-inch pieces of fabric to the zipper portion, making sure the nap of the fabric is in the same direction as the seat cushion. I'm pinning the side pieces to the top piece, and as I come around the corners, I'm cutting 4 to 6 little slits into the side pieces, so when it comes to sewing, there will be less puckering at the corners. Now that I've got one side attached, I'm going to pull up from the corner so I know where the other corner is. I'm going to make a couple little cuts. So when I pin the other side on, the cuts will already be made. I'm cutting out some Dacron here to cover the cushion with. It is used to soften the edges and create a softer feel, and it makes it look and fit better. After cutting it out, I apply some spray adhesive to attach it to the foam. The first problem is, it's got a lot of problems, but the first problem is the cushion doesn't even fit. It should go from here to here, but it's oversized. It doesn't fit in there.
So it was never the right size cushion for this piece of furniture. Another issue is someone has tried to repair some loose joints by adding a bunch of wood glue, but probably not clamping it. So the repair is a big fail. Another problem is the webbing. Most of the webbing has started to give way, so I'm going to have to replace all of it. It also looks like someone added some brackets in here, probably trying to just stabilize the loose joints. So what I think I'm going to have to do is take the whole thing apart and do some re-gluing and reattaching of the webbing, of new webbing. It is a cute little footstool. I really like it. The teak's in fairly good shape. It should be a quick little repair. But I've said that before.
Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is take out all the staples and remove the webbing. If you don't have one of these little tools, I would suggest you buy one if you do a lot of staple removal, because it's really, really handy to have. I bought it years ago. I took a reupholstering class, and this is what we used. This is what the instructor was using. So I went out and bought myself one, and I'm still using the same one, and it's got to be over 20 years old. So often it'll just pop the staple out on its own, like there, but then some, oh no, it didn't come out. See, it's still sticking out there. And then sometimes you just need pliers to pull it out afterwards. See, that one popped right out. Now here's the bottom after I've taken all the webbing out. Most of the webbing came out fairly easily after I removed the staples, but a couple pieces here and over here, they're not coming out because, I don't know if you can see it, there's a big glob of glue in there, and that's what's holding these two pieces on. So I'm going to try to take the rest of it apart and see if it comes out. Now it did break off some of the teak wood because it was glued, but nothing can be done about that. But I'll be able to fix this a lot better without these in. So I'm going to mark this so I know which way it goes back. Haha. Finally. What a mess. Oh well, had to be done. So I have finally taken the whole thing apart. There was no way I could not take it apart and just leave the glue as is because it was just too bad. But I've created a whole bunch of other problems. As you can see, this is what it looks like on the end. Not too good. There's a lot of wood that got pulled off when I separated the wood, as you can see here. Huge voids and gouges. It's going to take a little bit of work to get it all cleaned up. I have no doubt that it will go back together. It's just the cleaning up part will take a little time. I think there's a couple of dowels that actually cracked off, so I'll have to fix those and put some new ones in. And yeah, so this little project has become a rather large project. Okay, Monday morning, and I've got to do something with this mess. I think the first thing that I should do is probably just scrape down all the little bits of glue left on everything, the pieces of wood that got lifted off when I pulled the pieces apart. Just generally clean it up. That'll take quite a while. Then I'll decide how to put it all back together. Yeah, that's what I'll do.
I'm using a 3/8 inch Forstner bit to drill the initial hole because I can place the tip directly in the middle of the previous dowel to center it perfectly. I switched to a regular bit after because it eats through the wood a little easier. After I drill out the glue from the holes, I'm going to use epoxy putty to fill in all the voids around the holes.
Anybody else hate the smell of epoxy putty? But it's nasty.
The dowels are acting as placeholders so the putty doesn't seep into the holes. I will eventually put the dowels back in when it's time for glue up. Okay, I have cleaned up all the pieces. What that means is I've taken all the glue off the end pieces here. I've re-drilled holes where dowels have broken off. I've cleaned up the holes that were filled with glue. So I've drilled them. I've started to put some epoxy filler on some of the gouges around the holes, but unfortunately I ran out, so I'm going to have to dash off to the store and get some more. Right now what I'm going to do before I go to the store though is there's some pieces that I'm going to glue back in, and there's some pieces that are lifting off that I'm just going to glue down as well. Everything has been filled and sanded, and I am going to be putting all the pieces back together and I am going to use hide glue to do this. The reason I'm using hide glue is because it's reversible, allowing disassembly of the joints without damaging the wood. So if something were to happen to one of the joints in the future, it will be much easier to repair. I think the only reason I was able to remove the old wood glue from the joints was because it was so old and it had really dried out. It still wasn't an easy job to do. I've done a dry fit of the little stool and everything seems to be fitting fairly decently. Not perfect, but I'm happy with the fit. The joints are way better than they were, that's for sure. I was so careful to mark all the parts so they would go back together, and I don't know if anyone noticed, but I still made a mistake. And of course, I didn't notice it until I had everything glued and clamped. What I did is put one of the longer side rails facing the wrong way, and I realized this by seeing the screw holes facing outside instead of inside. I'm just glad I realized this before the glue was fully set, and I was able to undo it and put it back the right way. Of course, I didn't film it because I was in way too much of a panic when I discovered it, so just take my word for it. Even after clamping, there were still a few small gaps, so I decided to flood the gaps with glue and add some teak dust to fill the gaps. I figure it can't hurt, and if I don't like the way it looks, I can just add a little bit of epoxy later. Okay, here is the stool minus the clamps. I've patched it up as much as I can. I fixed some gaps in the joints and it's pretty much as good as it's going to get right now. So I think what I'm going to do is use some Gilboy's hard wax oil on it. I've had good success with it lately and it's very easy to apply. So that will be the next step. I'm cutting out a dust cover. It's essentially a protective layer that covers the bottom of the footstool. I'm using some landscaping fabric, but any lightweight fabric will do. Lessons I've learned after this redo is number one, I would use 3-inch foam. I find aesthetically the 4-inch is just a little too thick for that mid-century look. Number two, I would use a softer foam, at least on the back cushion. Your weight makes the bottom cushion have some give, but the back cushion just feels too hard. Number three, I would use a 2-inch foam on the footstool. Again, aesthetically, I think a lower profile cushion just would look better. And number four, I would bring the height dimension of the back cushion down by 3 or 4 inches. I think that would also look a little bit better. I've definitely learned a lot on this one. Upholstery, if you want to get good at it, like anything in life, takes practice. Let me know in the comments if this is anything you would tackle, and if anyone out there has some good tips to share, please do. Enjoy the reveal, and I'll see you later.